broadcasting around the world. This is the Hard Asset Money Show. Your wealth, your money, your future. Serious talk about what's happening and how you profit. Hosted by Christian Briggs. Follow him on X at BMC_HAM. In 3, 2, 1.
Yes, the government's still closed for now. A Senate vote kept in place the partisan standoff. Joining us now to discuss that and more is political analyst Jeff Crouere and economist Christian Briggs. Good to have you both here with us today. Jeff, Christian, from a political point of view, Jeff, which party could be most impacted by the shutdown, Republicans or Democrats?
This podcast is brought to you by Hard Asset Management. We have the lowest prices on all precious metals. Call us at 844-426-4653. That's 844-426-4653.
I mean, I think the Democrats will be. I think it's the Schumer shutdown. I think it's really something that the Senate Minority Leader is really doing because he's worried about his own political future in New York. Remember when he agreed to a deal back in March, he got criticized for caving to Donald Trump, and he remembered that, and now he's trying to be tough. And he's trying to pursue this to bolster his own credentials in his home state because he's worried about a challenge from AOC. And I think that's why we have this situation that we're in. I mean, they're trying to undo what was passed in the big, beautiful bill. So we got problems galore here with the Democrats. And that's why 3 of them have peeled off to support it. But Republicans need 5 more Democrats to make the 60 threshold to overcome the filibuster. So we'll see. I would think that eventually over the next few days, some more Democrats will back off and we'll see the government reopen.
Okay, and I do want to come back to the dynamics at play there amid the lawmakers who are in negotiations. But first, Christian, we heard it earlier, shutdowns don't typically have a huge impact on the economy because they're usually so short. But which part of the economy do you think will feel it most this time?
Well, thanks for having me. That's a great question. I think the economy, you're going to see a lot of it's going to be localized first, especially in the cities that have the largest amount of federal workers, if it goes any length of time. But your point is well made. These typically don't last that long. The Obama did, obviously, his back in the day when he was trying to get the Affordable Care Act. He shut it down for 17 days, and then the Republicans caved. But I would think that in this case, Trump may want to last a little bit longer. His advantage is 2 things. And what was just said earlier by my colleague there, he's right. I think that this is going to favor the Republicans way more. The areas that could be the most affected, if it goes longer than 2, 3, or 4 weeks, would obviously be the D.C. area, small businesses, because they're going to be all those federal workers furloughed. Other major cities where some of the federal workers will also be furloughed. So there will be some impact from the DC area, from the state level, especially in the local, because also you're not collecting taxes. So you're going to have tax collection because the paychecks aren't being put there to the employee. So you got revenues, you have localized businesses that aren't seeing the spending for lunches or daycares or dry cleaners. I mean, I can list a ton of different businesses. So small business could be impacted. But I think that this will be in Trump's advantage the longer it plays out, because I do believe that Chuck Schumer is using the illegal immigrants' health care as a byproduct of the reasoning. And I think he's worried about AOC running in his primary, winning the Senate seat, and taking away the seat he's had for all those years. So I think it's a two-part issue for Chuck Schumer and the Democrats.
All right, so with that in mind, Jeff, this political dynamic that we've painted here, you've mentioned you do think some Democrats will cross over. How do you think that will happen, and why?
Well, I mean, I think they do it because of pressure. They do it because of their constituents saying, hey, we want the government open, because people have worries about getting their services. I mean, government shutdowns are something that there's always an outcry about. Usually the Republicans are on the losing end of these things. Of course, the media normally blames the Republicans. But I think this time it's a different dynamic due to the internal politics that the Democrats have, due to the power that President Trump is now wielding here. So I think that you're going to see a few more peel off in the days ahead. and support this thing. The president's also making fun of them with memes. They don't like that. They're on the receiving end of ridicule, and they're claiming that the president's being racist. I don't think most of the American people are buying it. I think they understand the terminology being used, that this is Chuck Schumer's deal. Remember back in March when this last big deal was continued, you had 10 Democrats go along with the Republicans. So I think you've got some. The ones that I would look for would be the Democrats that are in purple states, the Democrats that are not totally in left-wing blue states, the ones that are more susceptible to challenges. Those would be the ones I think are more likely to peel off and support the president and get this, and the Republicans, and get this government back open again.
All right. And back on the economy, actually we mentioned the kind of pressure that could be coming down as if it draws out and people's lives are more affected. And you also spoke to that, Christian, but more broadly, if we take a step back at the state of the economy as a whole, with so many elements in flux right now in particular, do you think that is likely to influence negotiations?
It'll be a part of it, sure. We're definitely seeing a slowdown in the labor force. Revisions now are consistent with each month that the job numbers come out. Well, the next month they revise them down. So we're going into a negative job growth territory. We're contracting, at least in labor force. And what's interesting, and again, you make a good point, how the effectiveness of that could sway some of the Democrats to cross the line. I think you got two advantages here in Trump's favor: the political power of Trump and the Republicans right now, and that is economy. That's the economy that they want, to where they can at least be logical in their assertion and why they're letting the Democrats do what they do, because it's going to bring economic power back to the Republicans even more. And two, you're going to see Democrats cross that line. Now, it may not be in the next 5 days, could be in the next 10 days, but the economy affects people, especially when you're looking at states that are trying to fill budgets with revenues. And if these markets realize that this could be prolonged, or it could have a detrimental effect to some of their constituents, these guys are going to cross lines. And I think you could see a half a point maybe off the GDP. Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent said this morning that this could affect the GDP if it's prolonged. I agree 100%. So economy, political power, and positioning. How does the American people look at this in such a way? And I believe Jeff's right. I think Trump's got the upper hand in the negotiations, but economy will affect certainly maybe one or two, maybe three, maybe just enough to cross that line of the Democrats.
Interesting point there. Now, Jeff, something that has come up is how lawmakers, unlike federal workers, continue to receive their paychecks during the shutdown. So the critique here is that there could be more of an incentive to avoid a shutdown if this were changed. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, yes, I do. My listeners are not very happy with these members of Congress. Every time we look around, they're on vacation. So if you look at who should be getting paid, I think politicians would be last on the list as far as my listeners go, because they rarely work, they rarely accomplish anything, and they always seem to be on either junkets or vacations or big fundraisers. So yeah, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see congressional term limits for one. I'd love to see everything that Congress will not do, like putting limits on their terms, putting limits on their pay. I think they should be paid for the work that they're done, that they're doing, which is really not very much. So yeah, there's a lot of criticism about Congress. I think you look at the approval numbers, and they're terrible for both parties. The Republicans are more popular than the Democrats, but I think the Republican approval ratings are like 29%. Democrats in Congress are like 17%. So the American people really have no use for either party in Congress. And I think for good reason, because we don't see much getting accomplished. We see a lot of perks and vacations. They get rich while they're in office. How does that happen? It just doesn't look good to the American people. And I think they would be wise to make some reforms as far as pay, as far as their perks, to sort of gain more trust with the American people.
And if we're looking back at the impact on jobs, Christian, you mentioned the labor market's trending downward, but also policymakers won't get the monthly jobs report and other data until the government reopens. How could that impact operations? And also, if you'd like to speak more to the GDP that you just mentioned, the impact.
Well, okay, that's a great point, because today, when you look at some of the vital information flow from the federal government, whether it's inflation, whether it's the labor numbers, a host of different statistics that need to be kind of put together in a fairly scheduled manner. This is going to put everything kind of in a little bit of a quandra of wonder and doubt. So when you're looking at a lot of these analysts that are trying to gauge for the benefit of investors or just the economy for budgets, when you don't have access to these numbers on a scheduled basis, it throws everybody off. And I just noticed today, some companies now are trying to make decisions for the fourth quarter, first quarter next year on some hiring practices. There were some notes, and they can't because they don't get some of the statistics. So it's going to make a difference. The markets are going to move regardless. They're going to trade no matter what happens, but they may be on the wrong side of the trade. So investors may decide to pull up money out of the markets. A lot of people are talking about that today. Now, going back to the GDP a second. Okay, again, the GDP is going to be reflective of economic expansion and growth. And our GDP is on fire. There are 3 revisions higher so far in the last, 8 to 12 weeks. So we see the GDP running fairly significant. And yet, when you get the federal spending not completely cut, but the vast majority is cut, it has an immediate impact on businesses because so many rely on federal funds, especially on the state level, and then it actually goes through and kind of makes its way down to the local communities. So I do see that if this thing lasts more than 2 to 3 weeks, that's an impact. That will impact the GDP, that will impact the markets, and the wealth effect that's been doing so well with the stock market making these new highs. It has created wealth that has encouraged spending. Retail sales have been very good. That could be immediately eliminated with the perception of the slowdown or the way the government hasn't been spending that money could affect immediately the earnings of these companies, and the markets will reflect that quickly. They'll drop like a rock if this thing is prolonged.
Well, with more votes coming very soon, hopefully it all gets wrapped up and pushed forward and the government opens very soon. Otherwise, we'll have to have you back on to give some great advice for people about how to manage the change. Thank you so much, both of you, Jeff Crouere, Christian Briggs. Good to speak with you both.
Thank you so much.
Follow on X at BMC_HAM for all news and the latest developments.